Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us for another episode of the What's Going On in Banking podcast. I'm Ron Shevlin, Chief Research Officer at Cornerstone Advisors and author of the Fintech Snark Tank on Forbes. And of course, I am here with my co-host, Stacey Bryant. Stacey, how are you doing?
How you doing, Ron? I'm doing fan-flipping-tastic. Stacey has been on the road this week, and it is strategic planning season. So I know I am getting a whole bunch of calls, DMs via LinkedIn, texts. I mean, you name it. Just trying to understand exactly who's doing what, and yeah. So how you doing? I know you've been on the road too, and I know that we're going to remark on all things tech, fintech, and AI with Finovate Fall just happening earlier this week in New York City.
Yes, I think this is going to be the on the road edition of what's going on in banking, and maybe that edition for the next couple months. Ran into a lot of people this week. I was out at the Jack Henry Connect conference. Yes, that's correct. Connect conference out in San Diego, and everyone's like, "So, how's it going?" I'm like, "Well, summer's over, and we're back on the road." So this may very well be the on the road, but I think I would have loved. I can't stand the fact that so many of these great conferences overlap with each other.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had committed to doing a couple of things out at Jack Henry Connect, and that prevented me from going to Finovate. And I do think you were there for at least part of it. That's am I not correct about that?
Yeah. I was there for Monday, which is the first full event. And again, I'm a New Yorker, right? So even though I'm in Jersey, anytime Finovate's in town, I definitely show some love. And shout out to Katie and Greg Palmer for having myself and Sam Kilmer, right, our colleague. And it was fun. I'll tell you this, it kicked off with such an amazing event that hit close to home for me. They had a just women in financial services kickoff. And I was mentioning to another colleague earlier where you had, the generations in the room were baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, even Gen Z. There was this girl there, 19 years old, where she just wanted to just understand or get some backing, whether it was funding or whether it was just words of wisdom when it came to building her startup and solving a pain point. So first and foremost, that representation is key. I'm a geek in the world that we serve, Ron. I think you know that. So seeing some other folks that have been around and being mentors, so to speak. I know I also saw Sherry Wu over at the University of Michigan Credit Union, and she's their chief technology officer. She had been there for about maybe 8 years, and she was very gung-ho as far as, hey, listen, I never had credit union background, but I knew that I can go ahead and fulfill the job. And I think that her formula to success was that diversity of thought, was asking questions. And she mentioned that, even in speaking to vendors or now even at Finovate, there's so much AI powered this and AI powered that. She would ask these questions. What are you solving? Right? These are questions, Ron, that you and I have addressed in the past. So again, very, very amazing to be part of that group at the beginning of Monday. And then I just sat in a whole bunch of demos. I've been a demoer in the past, so I know you have to be spot on. And some demos went south. Some demos were meh. And I think the meh part was more so not being able to just immediately identify what you're solving. We see this whole interface, not user friendly. I like colors. I just give it to me right then and there and let me know where you're solving. And a lot of them that I sat on didn't blow me away, except drum roll, Sway Stack with I'm going to mispronounce his name, Harkai.
Hari Khalsa.
There we go. And first and foremost, he took his time. He this is not his first rodeo, right? As we very well know. And he was promoting Sway Stack's pain point of the solving attrition, right? And how to engage these accounts, whether it be from a credit union bank that are no longer using it or that are about to just be dead. And again, he used I think you have 7 minutes. I think he ran it up to like 6 minutes and 30 seconds, took his time, but was to the point. And I started seeing the audience in the room and I started seeing, okay, well, if you're taking your time, if you are solving a problem, and then if if you're explaining integration right then and there and being spot on with what this timeline looks like, I saw some more pens to paper. So that's Swaystack. Debbie's also I believe a financial wellness or financial literacy application, and I'm seeing those grow more and more and more. So I can't remember a differentiator, but I think the reason why I'm calling them out is that they were aesthetically pleasing. And again, they mentioned that whole integration part. I put my community banker hat on and understood in my little CIO hat, so to speak, that the integration was an easy one. So that's what I saw. And then, of course, supported our guy, Sam Kilmer, who just spoke about what a lot of folks, how they are looking at their tech stack today, how to even start dabbling into AI. What does that look like? Where do you start? Data strategy, you name it. So that was Finovate on Monday.
Awesome. Well, I wasn't there, but hey, surprise, surprise, I have a comment or two about it. First of all, I want to go back to your. I like that you pointed out and called out Swaystack. I know RA, and I think they're doing a great job there, but I think there's a bigger story that I want to kind of harp on here.
What's that?
Which is traditionally the banker's mindset from a consumer or a customer's life cycle is kind of the ACS model. It's you acquire, you cross-sell, you service, or sometimes it's the other way around. You acquire, service, and then cross-sell. What Swaystack represents is a change in the model, a better understanding among bankers that there's an O piece in there, onboarding. Yep. You can acquire a customer, but there's a period of relationship building that is really about onboarding, and it isn't just the immediate 7 days or 14 days after the account application is open and the account gets funded or whatever it might be. It's generally a multi-month period, or could even be up to a year, of making sure that that new customer is engaged with a lot of the product features of the product that they have. So it's not just getting direct deposit, but it's about signing them up for online banking and mobile banking and bill pay and all those other kind of features and so forth, and getting them using the PFM tools and whatever new products and services. And I'm very pleased to see not just that Swaystack was there and done well in your eyes, but that onboarding in general is kind of becoming a part of the relationship building process. So I think that was one point very important I want to make on your comments to Swaystack. The other thing is, again, even though I wasn't there, I did track what was going on. And every year I'm interested in seeing who the best in show providers are. Stacey, going back, 10 years now, maybe, my first Finovate was in 2007 in San Francisco. I remember that one really well. Wow. So I've been to a lot of them. I've missed a whole bunch of them in the past few years because of conflicts. But every year I like to keep up and look to see who the best in show winners are. And maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe even going back maybe 15, I've been very critical of the voters in the best in show, that they were really voting for a lot of the front-end user experience, user design type things. My friends at MX are not going to be pleased at me for calling them out for this, but I remember the year when they demonstrated bubble charts and won best in show, and I went berserk and ballistic on LinkedIn criticizing this. It was like, who cares about?
Wait. What do you mean bubble charts?
Oh, the PFM was showing analysis in bubble charts. I don't know how to describe this, but you look this up and it was bubble charts. And I was like, guys, come on. This, not only MX were you ridiculous in putting that out there and demoing it, but the bankers, the voters, who are voting for best in show, were voting for user interface, user design features, and not the things that were really going to transform banking. And when I looked at this year's winners, there are a couple I want to point out, again, not because of who they are in particular, but for the underlying trend. So KSAP was one of the winners, and it's interesting. What they do is a lot of the dispute resolution process for card and payment dispute. fraud dispute types of things. So very pleased to see that they would win Best in Show because from the voter perspective, it's a recognition of the importance of dispute resolution and fraud resolution to the process. By the time a lot of people listen to this podcast, Stacey, we may have already come out with a cornerstone report that we just did. It was actually commissioned by a KSAP competitor, Quavo, that surveyed 2,500 consumers who have gone through the fraud dispute process over the past few years. And what we literally learned, and it won't surprise the Quavos and KSAPs of the world, but may surprise a lot of the bankers of the world, is that the quality of the fraud experience is a key differentiator in the from a relationship perspective in terms of influencing consumers' intention to do more business with the institution. What's interesting is that consumers don't generally blame the institution for the fraud. They know that that's being perpetrated by somebody else. But the extent to which the financial institution supports and resolves that dispute process, both from a quality and time perspective and bringing the right data together, has a huge influence on consumers' satisfaction with the institution and with their future intention to grow the relationship and do more business. And of course, with fraud levels going through the roof, this just means that there's going to be a lot more dispute resolution processes and experiences that consumers are going to go through over the next couple of years. So we're trying to bring that to light through some of the cornerstone research that we're publishing to get bank and credit union executives to really understand this is a key differentiator in the relationship. Another winner this week that I want to point out was a company called Eco won Best in Show. And what they're doing is kind of integrating investment capabilities into the deposit account, into the checking account. And again, I don't want to sound like we're just harping tooting our own horn here, but we did publish a report a couple months ago, commissioned by Investify, that really pointed out that for young consumers, integrating investment capabilities, both investing in both crypto and more traditional securities, and integrating that in with a deposit account can be a huge differentiator for financial institutions, particularly community-based financial institutions. We actually estimated what the deposit savings could be. And when I say deposit savings, I'm really referring to the saving of the deposit displacement or outflow. One other point I want to bring up, gosh, it's been about 10 years that I started using the term deposit displacement, back when Fintech started to get big, and then interest rates went down, and then that was less of an issue, and then interest rates went back up. And over the past 5 years, Stacey, we estimated in the report that banks and credit unions have seen more than $3 trillion leave banks and credit unions for Fintech providers and other non-bank providers. And so fighting the deposit outflow has to come from a lot more than just turning the needle on your analytics, but really coming out with new products, innovative products and services that stem the outflow. So that's my rant on the Finovate stuff. Your comeback on that?
Yeah. So for Eco, that's what is that? Investments as a service targeted for a younger demographic?
Same thing what Investify has. They integrated the investing capability into the deposit account, enabling credit unions and banks, community-based banks, to have an offering that stands out and differentiates. You look at what Robinhood's been doing over the past. I had mentioned somewhere recently that they have $18 billion in deposits, and I was corrected because apparently in the Q1 of this year, they gained $18 billion in deposits. So,
right.
This is a huge outflow that's heading out to the competitors, and community-based institutions have got to do a lot more than just pleading with their customers and members to do it. They've got to fight back with new products and services. And that's what I want to call out about Eco and, call out about KSAP was it's about coming out with new ways of improving the experience, of improving the products and services that's going to fight the outflow and fight the fintech threat.
And you know what? Again, I mentioned at the top of this conversation, strategic planning season, it's already underway. So as a lot of folks are thinking about how else to move the needle, how else to drive, whether it be accounts or engagement, it just sounds like these winners of Finovate, so to speak, with these appropriate partnerships, they may be able to kind of go ahead and help, whether it be fee income, whether it just be simply moving the needle. So shout out to all these winners, and virtual applause for them.
There are two things I wanted to bring up about both Finovate and Jack Henry Connect. When you was talking about the event that you went to for, I thought what you were actually going to reference that happened this week at Finovate was and I'm really, really sorry I missed this, was a tribute to Barb McLean.
Yes.
Who passed away a few months ago.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Who did the Fintech playlist every week for a couple of years. She was a huge supporter for me. I knew her long before she started the playlist in some of the areas that she was working in, even before she got to Coastal Bank. That was a huge, huge loss for the whole Fintech and banking community. And hats off to the folks at Finovate for putting that out there. The other thing that I wanted to mention, in a similar emotional vein, happened this week at Jack Henry Connect. Wade Arnold from Move was out there. He and Ben Metz were announcing their partnership with the new Tap to Local, or Local to Tap, whatever it is, the product they were offering. You might have heard about the school shooting in Colorado. Well, that school is where Wade Arnold's kids go to. They attend that school. So he, of course, made every arrangement he possibly could to get home back to Colorado from San Diego, and posted on LinkedIn that United Airlines could not get him out until late on Tuesday. Well, the folks at Jack Henry stepped in, got the corporate pilots in, got the corporate jet, and helped Wade get home hours before he possibly could have. And I just want to, Jack Henry, to the folks there, you put on a great show this week, a great conference. But to Greg Adelson and his team there, the stepping in and doing that, I think huge respect for what you guys did. So, an emotional side to banking, and goes to really show that, and this is what ticks me off, Stacey. You listen to our politicians in this country, and they're always bashing banks, how evil they are for this or that. But you know what? This is a different community, and it really pisses me off when the politicians don't see this side of the industry.
I'll say this. I'll give it an intentional pause there. I think MLK says it. Dr. MLK says it best, where it's through times of adversity that you truly see, and I'm paraphrasing it, of course, what leadership is, right? And that's to be human. And at the end of the day, we tend to the financial services, damn near of the world, and we are human, right? So I also want to remark that a year ago at Finovate, I had the amazing opportunity in bringing Levain cookies. So if you're a New Yorker, and I think they're all over now, but if you're a New Yorker, they're like these huge, Ron, these huge cookies on crack, so to speak. Just amazing. They taste delicious. And I bought a whole box, and I met Barb McLean for the first time. And she had just a sick, like, motorcycle jacket, and just understanding that she was running IT for one of the most progressive financial institutions, at least in my plate here. And she was just eating my cookie and just telling me about the politics, and telling me that she gun holes and she goes forward, and she gets slapped later, but when she sees opportunity, she will seize it. So rest in peace to Barb. Thank you for imprinting on me in that cookie, in those few minutes in the cookie mix. So. All righty. Well, just shifting gears a little bit, I did want to just speak about an article that came across my lap here a few weeks ago. And this article basically came out back in May of this year, May of 2025. And super duper catchy title here. It's 99% of AI startups will be dead by 2026. And here's why. And I really wanted to bring it up, Ron, because I really just wanted to hear your feedback. And essentially, the article touches on that 99% of AI startups are predicted to fail by 2026. So we're in September of 2025. 2026 is just a few months away. And article goes on to say that due to their fragile reliance and on rented models and their complete dependency on infrastructures like NVIDIA, OpenAI, they relate it back to the 90s .com boom. And they speak about how this is pretty much their gold rushing for nothing, and calling these startups that are wrapping their services over ChatGPT, built on the top of the APIs of OpenAI's ChatGPT 4, at least in this article, and they identify the eerie dependency loop of OpenAI dominating, but also relying on these wrappers for distribution. And one of the questions I have for you as we think about, first and foremost, I wanted to hear your feedback as far as do you think that's a great analogy about a lot of these AI startups? I know we have an internal conversation and how a lot of vendors these days, they're saying AI powered this and AI powered that. I think I also shared with you, and I'll share it in a minute. I'm looking at it right now. I had ChatGPT create Smokey the Bear. And remember, I know growing up for me, Smokey the Bear was known for to promote like fire safety patrol and control rather. And I remember him saying only you can control forest fires, right? So I had ChatGPT do maybe a mock-up of what this looks like when we think about a lot of the AI snake oil. So hopefully y'all can see it here, but it really sheds light to only you can prevent vendors from selling you AI snake oil. So when we think about that, some call it capitalistic and opportunistic, or however you want to define it. But I don't know. Is there such a thing as a sustainable AI business in the world of AI when things are changing day to day?
So I got a couple of reactions for this, Stacey, and I'm glad you brought this one up because you push that bruise, and go, okay, now I got to respond to this one.
Of course.
So first of all, I've been an technology analyst for a very long time, and what I've learned is you can be right 90% of the time by just coming out and saying XYZ startup is going to fail. So right off the bat, that's the easiest thing to do. The harder part is picking the winners, not picking the losers, because 90% of the time you're going to be right. Second problem we've got here is the thing that you're kind of harping on right at the end there, which is when everything has AI enabled, integrated into it, then the concept of an AI startup really doesn't make any sense. You kind of go back maybe 40 years at this point to when PCs first came out, and to say something was a PC driven application versus a mainframe or a mini computer, it was like, well, that's where the VC money was going because that's where all the startups and activity is. But it was a meaningless label. And today, AI enabled or AI powered or whatever it might be, or AI focused, is a meaningless label. I'm not going to make any friends with this next comment. In fact, I may lose a few friends with this next comment. I might even get some nasty emails and LinkedIn messages. But there is an investment company, the VC related company, that recently came out with its new investment thesis. And they had this sort of 3-level chart and said at the top of their little pyramid were AI enabled companies. And they said, this is where we're going to focus our investments on. And I thought to myself after seeing this, Stacey, is like, everything's going to be AI enabled and powered at the top of that.
Of course.
So now here's where the real kind of challenge with that article is that you kind of have to accept the fact that the AI label is kind of meaningless, but let's just run with it for a minute. There are a lot of investments and a lot of companies who are creating AI infrastructure level things. And these days, a lot of this has to do with agents and orchestration and that kind of layer and all those kinds of things that are kind of behind the scenes from a user perspective. And then there are all these AI applications that sit on top of the AI infrastructure that add some sort of value to the end user. The predicting that 99% are going to fail is kind of like a throwaway type of thing. The challenge is in predicting which areas are going to really have more success. The AI infrastructure, AI application, or then AI related things that relate to things like security, privacy, and other things. And I think the way to look at this, and I think this is very important, not just for the AI piece, but even going forward the next couple of years. And we're going to hold off on the stablecoin conversation for another episode. But I want you to go back in time and go back 40 years to when PCs really became popular and Microsoft became a dominant player in the computing market. What was Microsoft's first product? MS-DOS, the operating system. Microsoft's genius was that they recognized that even if they could have a dominant market share of operating system, it wasn't enough. They had to build applications like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel on top of that. That helped emphasize and lock users into the operating system. Because if you were using Excel and Word and PowerPoint, you had to use MS-DOS.
Right.
Then they shifted their strategy to the solutions that sat on top of NBC, the vertical market type of applications. I don't know that they have been as dominant on that side. But here's the lesson from a strategy perspective, Stacey, is that competition in a market and profits always rise to the top of the value chart. You can make a lot of money in a short period of time by being the infrastructure provider, but by definition, over time, unit prices and unit costs will decline. So you constantly have to be expanding your markets, and it becomes very risky, as we've seen with different, Google coming in and now OpenAI coming in and so forth. And the reason that this is important from the banking perspective is that, look, you're crazy as a bank to be worrying about what the operating system or the lowest level, which is privacy security, is going to be. Somebody else is going to do that for you.
Yeah.
The middle layer is money movement. And yes, a lot of our banking clients and credit union clients are worried about that. But ultimately, the competition goes to the top of the chart, which is in the banking construct. The lowest level is security, the middle layer is money movement, and the top layer is optimization. And it's why money management is more important than money movement. And so as stablecoin comes in, there'll be an infrastructure layer that will deal with it. There will be providers who provide money movement in the middle. The role for the banks will always be in the optimization at the top level. So your last thoughts, and then we're going to call it an episode and talk more about stablecoin and other stuff next time.
So, no, I feel like my last thoughts here, Ron, I think about what really intrigued me about, just all these wrappers. And I hear you, even with like how Microsoft scaled and they build and they had to add everything, like Word or PowerPoint and Office and so on and so forth. I'm just hearing so much on these roads where, I have a lot of community banker and credit union executives asking the question, hey, do we build or buy, right? This one credit union, they need to, they ready to whop out thousands of dollars to pay a company to create a website for them. And I think you and I very well know, and again, this comment may just also piss some people off, but we right now, if we wanted to, we can share our screen and have ChatGPT build us a website, right? But I also think that there are some folks that don't want the liability if something goes wrong. So I'll be curious to see exactly as AI, OpenAI, and everything morphs, we think about, you said, the management of money and the behavior. That's what I take from it. So what is the behavior? What is the market actually calling for? And what do these trends look like? And I think we'll just have to just keep observing and applying and testing and learning and providing our opinion on it.
We'll deal with it next time and 3 more times, I'm sure, as we go down the line with this. Stacey, thanks a lot. Everybody, thanks who's listening in. Appreciate you doing that. Please look for the next episode of What's Going On in Banking. Thanks a lot, guys.
See ya. If you enjoyed today's What's Going On in Banking episode, make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. We've got more great conversations, nitty, witty, gritty, coming your way, and you won't want to miss them. Thanks for tuning in.